Hello everyone and welcome to the Hylian Gamescast, the best Zelda podcast in the world. Remember, our giveaway for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, signed by the voice actors from the game, such as Zelda, the Deku Tree, and the other champions, is still going. Details to everything can be found in the description with a link to the video explaining it all. On yesterday's video, we discussed some fake news published by a website, who apparently knows absolutely nothing about Zelda and just wanted to put up some clickbait so they could get some views. We went through and debunked everything that they said and confirmed the little bit that was actually true. They published an article on January 31st, the very last day of January, saying that a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel, so Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, was confirmed, in all capital letters, confirmed, ahead of the January Nintendo Direct. Now, this is just pure stupidity and ignorance, and it is our job here on the Hylian Gamescast to put an end to all of this misinformation. The Zelda mailbag question for that episode came from one of our friends, well-known cosplayer, Playboy's Playmate of the Year, dancer, voice actor, but most importantly, our good friend, Holly Wolf. She asked, if you got sucked into the world of Hyrule, what race would you be, and why? Now, within a single day, we had almost 100 comments, so thank every single one of you. Some of your answers were amazing. Some of them had me literally laughing out loud. I don't usually try to pick the funny answers because I want people to give serious answers, but this one was too good to pass up, and I had a lot of likes from other people. So the answer comes from Cassidy Jennings, who answered, if I dropped into the world of Zelda, I would be a Korok. I too hide from people, love the forest, and poop golden turds. Today's question comes from another good friend of ours, Sleepy Kokiri, who asks, do you like the fact that the weapons break in Breath of the Wild, or does it make you rather annoyed? Remember to put your answer to this question in the comments below for your chance to be featured on tomorrow's video. And because so many of you are commenting, we are actually going to post our 3 favorite answers for now on to give more of you a chance to be featured and to have your YouTube channels get a shout out. You can also screenshot your answer and tag us on Twitter or Instagram for a better chance to have your answer and your Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube channel featured on our podcast. If you have your own question you would like us to ask in the next video, please leave it in a separate comment on this same video. Now, let's get started. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the cancelled Metroid game for Nintendo 64, as well as the sort of cancelled Metroid Prime 4 for the Nintendo Switch. The thought going around from fans is that Nintendo is basically scrapping everything that they have done with Metroid Prime 4 and moving the production to Retro Studios. Now, for those who don't know, Retro Studios was created specifically to make a Metroid game, and we will actually get into some of the history of their studio and more details on why they were created. Basically, it comes down to exactly what happened in this situation. Nintendo asked tons of their own studios and even third-party studios to work on the Metroid game for Nintendo 64. However, no one wanted to take the chance to make the game, because they didn't want to get blamed for ruining the series. None of the developers that they asked wanted to take the risk. Seriously, none of the developers they asked wanted to take the risk to ruin their reputation by making a bad Metroid game. So Nintendo put together their own studio, Retro Studios, with hand-picked talented developers to finally make a 3D Metroid game. Now it seems with the new team not having the quality that Nintendo's looking for, Retro Studios has been given the task of creating another amazing Metroid Prime game. The last home console Metroid game wasn't really a fan favorite, and is looked at as one of the reasons that the Metroid series has been absent of the home consoles, on the home consoles. So now that you have all of the news, if you want to stay and listen to our discussion and our thoughts, giving a lot more details, please stay tuned and listen.
Yeah, guys, this news comes from the most reliable source about Nintendo games, Nintendo themselves. So you can watch the video on their YouTube channel, and it's a very, like 7 minutes long, I think, very down-to-earth video. But the gist of it, so Metroid Prime 4 has been officially delayed, and the reason that they've told us, rumors aside, is they are saying that, you know, the development, they've been spending the last 2 years on it since they showed it off at E3 of 2017, and they are just not satisfied with the product, so they're bringing Retro Studios back on. They're completely scrapping everything they've worked on for the last 2 years of development and just restarting from the beginning over again. And so it's still going to be a little bit before Metroid Prime 4 comes. A lot of people were thinking it was coming this year or next year. Evidently, that's not going to be the case. We may be looking at another 2-3 years or so as an estimate before it comes out. So, yes, that's the news. There's a lot of backlash about it. A lot of people on Twitter complaining, saying they're very upset about it. The Nintendo maybe should have had Retro on from the start, which maybe is true. People are disappointed. Personally, I think they made the right move, and I think I guess I'm a patient person. I'm willing to wait a few extra years, like we did with Breath of the Wild. We waited an extra 2 years for that to come out, and the game was better off for it. And Nintendo's commitment to quality really shows here. And I think if you watch the video, you can really see this is not a decision lightly to just throw 2 years of work in the trash and start over. But you can see their commitment to quality really shine through there, because they're not going to release a game that's half-baked. They're not going to release this game if it's not up to their standard. And think about the worst Nintendo game, your least favorite official Nintendo game, and think about that. That was up to their standard. So do you want a Metroid Prime game worse than that? Think about that for a minute. But really, it's I think it's a good thing overall that they made it was a hard but I think necessary choice just to make the game better for it, because you have to be honest, if their game is not going to be good, they shouldn't ask us to pay for it and release it. They should start over, work on it till it's fixed and better, and go from there. So a lot of people are asking for the Prime Trilogy in the chat here. I hope they do HD Trilogy to make the wait easier to deal with. I wouldn't be surprised. They gave Metroid Prime Trilogy a second life on Wii. They did that with the Breath of the Wild. They had a ton of re-releases between Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild for older games, so I wouldn't be too surprised if that were the case. But yeah, what do you guys think about that? Jesse, you said you had some thoughts.
Yeah, so I don't think this is necessarily them completely starting from scratch, because a couple of things here is, at the end of the day, like Miyamoto and the other people that are like actually in charge of most of the stuff going on at Nintendo, they are the ones that give the final approval on everything. And you could have a really great Samus character model with really great armor. You could have really great like levels or designs, weapons, stuff like that, that at the end of the day, again, whether the actual gameplay it's used in is good or bad, the actual design choices and everything have to be approved by like Miyamoto and everyone. So like when you're first beginning a Metroid game, the most important thing at the very beginning is getting like a Samus, like whatever spacesuits attachments you're going to have, getting the actual main character design looking good. So with the people up above, the mystery development team, I don't think they actually said who was in charge of developing it. Did they? The original that they canceled?
I'm trying to think. I can't think of it. Yeah. I remember on Discord someone mentioning that it was someone in particular, but I don't remember who, and I don't remember Nintendo ever actually saying that it was. I just remember them saying that it wasn't Retro Studios, which makes me wonder what Retro Studios has been working on all these years, and if that's gonna get delayed as well because of it. But yeah, but Gibbs has some input.
I was gonna say real quick, the rumor is that it was Bandai Namco on one of their branches.
Yeah,
but I don't think so. I think Bandai Namco would have already mentioned something, or would have been part of the teaser trailer or something. I think
I think from the start they would have said if it was Namco,
especially that big of a company. So it might have been a smaller a smaller developer on the.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible it could have been Nintendo taking a leap and like just trying out a new studio, and they
like they did with Prime, where
like
they just put together an entirely new studio because no one else wanted to take the risk.
Yeah, and it's just like you're the Metroid guys now. No one else is gonna do it, so it's up to you guys. Just Cliff. A wild Cliff appears.
Yeah. So with
and goes.
my thought on it was, there he is. Hi, Cliff.
Cliff.
He's probably getting everything set up. But my thought was basically a lot of the fundamental like foundation stuff that they created, like character models, certain level designs, the actual game engine they're using, the lighting, all of that stuff, the very basic stuff from the game. I think they would just be able to reuse some of that. They could go in and completely change what Samus, like the suit, what everything looks like. It is possible they could go in and just redo absolutely everything. But again, at the end of the day, all of the character designs and everything would have needed to be approved by Miyamoto and all of these other people. Like, we've seen that even with complete third-party Nintendo games, like the Mario Rabbids crossover game. They had Miyamoto was in complete control over it. Like, he had to approve absolutely everything. He had it so that none of the guns looked too realistic. He made sure the character model looked like it was a Nintendo quality character model. With Aonuma and Hyrule Warriors, it was the same thing, to where it was the third-party team, I can't think of it, Team Ninja or whatever, that was actually developing the game, Koei Tecmo, I think, whoever it was. But anyways, they were developing the game itself, but at the end of the day, like, they had to report in to Aonuma like every other day and be like, this is what we've made, this is the updates we've had, this is what we're working on, and Aonuma would say yes or no. So with this game, Metroid, I think it would be basically the same, to where Miyamoto or whoever at the end of the day would have the final say, to where the gameplay itself could have been what was completely horrible, but the character models and everything could have looked good. Otherwise, Miyamoto or whoever would have went in and like made it themselves to have it be the quality that they want. So I think that Retro Studios aren't necessarily starting from absolutely nothing, but are starting from like, they're basically getting the foundation of what the game was, and they're just like maybe keeping 10% of it and then going from there, which they could like update the character models themselves. But the good thing that comes from this is, in the meantime, when Breath of the Wild was delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, Nintendo did something awesome and released Wind Waker HD and released Twilight Princess HD and
Majora's Mask 3D.
Yeah, but I think that was in development as soon as Ocarina of Time 3D ended. So I didn't do that. While it did release while Breath of the Wild was being delayed, but I don't think it was necessarily released because Breath of the Wild was delayed, to where Wind Waker HD, they specifically stated, because Breath of the Wild would take so long, or Zelda Wii U at the time, that they wanted to, instead of just giving us like 4 to 5 years of absolutely nothing, they decided, well, we can, since we've never worked on an HD game before using this game engine, we can take a game that we already know, Wind Waker, which they also experimented with Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. There's a really cool like teaser image where they have all 3 Links standing beside each other in the same engine, which is really cool. But they had the experience from Wind Waker HD So like the year or however long it took for them to work on that actually sped up the development time that it was going to take to develop Breath of the Wild, because instead of starting from absolutely nothing and learning how to develop for the Wii U on its own without any prior experience with the brand new engine and a brand new game, an open world game and everything, instead of doing that from no experience at all, they could work on Wind Waker HD, get familiar with it, and then instead of getting one game in 6 years, so like instead of having 5 or 6 years with absolutely nothing and then getting Breath of the Wild at the very end of it, we got 2 separate games, Wind Waker HD, and then because they worked on Wind Waker HD, that helped them speed up the development time of Breath of the Wild. So basically, instead of getting one game in like 5 or 6 years, you would get 2 games in 4 to 5 years. It's because it didn't necessarily take time away from getting Breath of the Wild, because they said it actually helped speed up the development time, because they needed Wind Waker HD to learn how to actually develop for the Wii U, because it's easier to take something and apply it to the Wii U that you already knew instead of starting from nothing. But anyways, that's a bit off topic. I think maybe they could do something with the Metroid trilogy in the same vein that they did with Wind Waker HD, to where maybe it's not Retro. Maybe Retro already worked on the trilogy HD thing, and now they're like, okay, well, you finished the Metroid Prime trilogy, it looks great. This other development team that's working on their own Metroid game is doing not so great. So since you made the first 3 and now the trilogy presumably might be close to being finished, you can just start on the actual Metroid Prime 4, and in the meantime we'll give everyone an HD collection, or maybe it's Tantalus or some other studio that's developing Metroid Prime. Who knows? Because Tantalus, I sort of believe it would be Skyward Sword HD, or just a port of Twilight Princess HD for the Switch. But Tantalus, we had the news article a while back where they confirmed that they were working on unannounced Nintendo games for the Switch. So like HD remasters or remakes for the Switch. Which is basically all that Tantalus does, is HD ports and stuff. So they did say they were working on something that was unannounced, that we didn't know what exactly it was. Even since then, it's still unannounced. We still don't know what it is. So it could be anything from Mario Galaxy to Skyward Sword to Metroid Prime Trilogy or whatever. Anyways, I'm rambling. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to say that it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, there is that thing that everyone quotes from Miyamoto where he says, like, a delayed game, like a rushed game is a bad game forever, but a delayed game could eventually be a good game or whatever.
Yeah, which apparently he didn't say, according.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it is always getting passed around, but at the same time, I think of Majora's Mask, which is at the, like, whether you personally hate the game or you love the game, Majora's Mask is pretty close to the top of most people's favorite Nintendo game or favorite Zelda game. So, like, the entire reason that game exists is because it was rushed from the very beginning. Aonuma had a deal that if he could finish the game within a single year, then they could work on it. And he made the deal. They finished the game within a year. They released it. Wind Waker, another great game, had similar development to where Majora's Mask released in 2000, and then they had the HD, not the HD, they had the GameCube demo that looked like an enhanced version of Ocarina of Time that was shown at Space World 2000. Shortly after that, they began development of Wind Waker, and then Wind Waker released at the end of 2002. So, like, within 2 years, Wind Waker was released from when it first began, and which it released in 2003 in America, but it released in 2002 in Japan. So that game had 2 years, and it was rushed because there were dungeons and entire villages that were scrapped from that game because they couldn't finish them in time, and what they had just made the game seem like boring or whatever it was. Like you said, it didn't really fit in with what was there. So instead of delaying the game to fix it, they're just like, okay, well, you get to this island and the island is completely destroyed. So
Plot twist.
yeah, so Wind Waker, another game that Miyamoto was in charge of with Aonuma, that was, again, completely rushed. The entire purpose of Wind Waker and Majora's Mask, the reason they turned out like they did is because they were rushed. It wasn't really until Twilight Princess that the games ended up being delayed for a long time, because Ocarina of Time took a long time because it was their first 3D Zelda game, and it had like 5 different variations. Like, it started out with like a Zelda 2 remake in 3D, which had like that really weird character model that I don't think anyone liked from when they first showed off the Nintendo 64. But that game took a long time to make because it had different versions and stuff. And then they made Majora's Mask in a year. They made Wind Waker in 2 years. And then it was not until Twilight Princess, which took like 5 years, and then Skyward Sword took 5 or 6 years, and then Breath of the Wild took another 5 or 6 years. But it wasn't until those games that Zelda started taking these really long development cycles, because even Zelda 2, I think, was made within like a year or whatever.
Something like that, yeah. It was pretty shortly after.
But yeah, basically what I'm saying is just because a game is delayed doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be better than it would have been, and just because a game is rushed doesn't mean that it's going to be better than, yeah, because there's a lot of people that hate with a passion Twilight Princess because it's too dark, too moody or whatever, or they hate Skyward Sword for whatever reasons because it's too painted like, or the motion control. Yeah. Despite the story and Skyward Sword being really good, there are people that just hate the gameplay or whatever, and those were Zelda games that were delayed for a long time, and they would prefer playing games like Majora's Mask or The Wind Waker, which were the exact opposite, to where they were rushed and put out in less than half the time. So yeah, the delayed game thing, like the quote from Miyamoto, whether or not Miyamoto did say that quote, he doesn't even follow it, because he's rushed out games to hurry and get them out instead of delaying them. But yeah, anyways, yeah, you guys can take it from here. I'm done ranting.
Yeah, I mean, there's some merit to the idea of the quote, even though it's not actually something Miyamoto said, but he, like, I get the idea behind it. You know, if something's not good, instead of just rushing it out and getting it, you know, it's probably a better idea to just delay the game to fix it. But you know, that's just,
Is
it's
Cliff
so
here?
broad. It's, I don't know. Hey Cliff, he doesn't show us online on Discord.
He literally he just wanted to like have his
Hey
presence
guys, how's
here.
it going?
Okay, there.
Hey, you are here, man.
Hey, I'm like setting up right now.
No, I was gonna like make the joke. You just wanted to have your name featured on the podcast.
Yeah.
You didn't really want to be here talking.
Yeah, I'm like, hey guys, I'm here. Like my face is like nowhere to be seen right now.
Your icon's here.
Yeah,
Though.
I was thinking like I might be able to do my webcam, so I was trying to set up. But
Yeah.
I was gonna mention though what Jesse was talking about Metroid Prime is that I don't know if you guys mentioned this, but it was mentioned on Twitter like earlier this week that apparently, I guess the reason why it got quote unquote canceled is because I guess they were trying out this new development system using ad hoc. And I guess how they would do it is like have different development people like work on the game separately. So I guess there wasn't really great communication with that.
Well, they did that with Breath of the Wild, and it ended up being really great because they had their core Nintendo Zelda team, but then they also had a bunch of people from the Xenoblade Chronicles team.
Monolith Soft.
Yeah, and they were in like a completely different studio building, and Breath of the Wild turned out to be amazing. So I guess it's just like sometimes that can be good, sometimes it can be bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I am excited that they are bringing back Retro. I think Retro should have been like they should have been working on the game to begin with.
I agree.
I think it was it confirmed to be Bandai working on it?
No,
That's
that was
what
just
I
a
heard, but
It was
yeah, I mean,
rumored.
Yeah, but I agree. Like Retro probably should have been working on it because, you know, if there's any studio that has like a bang up, awesome track record, it's
Especially
Retro.
with Metroid Prime.
Yeah, especially with Metroid Prime. But
Yeah. So, Daniel, you were in the middle of talking, but I went to Retro's page, their wiki page, just to see if like it had been updated for Metroid Prime 4 or to see what they had been working on. And like it has Metroid Prime 4, but it has like TBA, and like it doesn't even have the director listed for the game.
oh wow,
So, yeah. But anyways, Retro Studios, for those who don't know, we were talking about this before the podcast began. The reason we never got a Metroid game on Nintendo 64, which we have a really cool video covering the top 5 canceled Metroid games. Nintendo wanted really bad, like Nintendo literally begged development teams, third-party teams, and their own development teams to make a Metroid game for Nintendo 64, but nobody wanted to do it because nobody, like, they had seen how Mario converted to 3D, they had seen how Zelda converted to 3D, they had seen how these other games converted to 3D. Nobody really understood or thought about how a Metroid game could convert to 3D. Even with Metroid Prime series, like I think Miyamoto was hesitant about the way that they began developing it with like that first person perspective, because like the whole point is like, how's he going to like curl up into a ball if it's first person? Like there was that whole weird thing. And then like there's the quote where he mentioned something about like having a bug head, and no one really knew how to take that, and then they decided it just like a HUD display or what, I don't know, it was really weird. But anyways, no one wanted to make Metroid Prime or Metroid on Nintendo 64. So whenever the GameCube began development, Nintendo ended up just creating their own team and forcing them to work on Metroid, which became Metroid Prime, because none of their own first-party teams wanted to be the team that like screwed up the franchise.
yeah.
No third parties wanted to do it. Like no one wanted to take the risk and be the studio that got fired because they ruined Metroid. So it took Nintendo literally creating their own team to do it. And then after Metroid Other M, it was probably the same situation to where like no one wanted to take the risk in making another bad Metroid Prime game or another bad Metroid game. So they ended up making this new studio that's a mystery that no one knows about. It was probably the same thing, to where they were hoping it would turn out to be really great, and then they would have like a Retro Studios 2.0 on their hand. But yeah. Anyways, Daniel.
I was looking on that wiki page as well, and all I can find is that Bill Trinen had said that Metroid Prime 4 was being developed by a talented new development team, and not who that team was.
Oh, so it was a new development team.
Yeah, so, or at least that's what it says, talented new development team. So, yeah, I guess they were just taking the plunge, and this time, it didn't pay off. It just didn't work this time, but other times, I mean, it has. They've done that.
I mean...
Yeah. I mean, Retro's got a great track record. They are the people for this job. The games they've worked on, Metroid Prime, Donkey Kong Country Returns, and Tropical Freeze, and Mario Kart 7. Those are all, they did a bang-up job with every single one of those games that they worked on. So, yeah, I've got faith. Yeah. I've got faith in Retro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no doubt that they'll do good with this. I know that people have like posted online that like that some of the people, like some of the core people who worked on Metroid Prime left to work on other projects. So it is going to be interesting to see like how this game would be compared to the other ones.
Yeah, but at the end of the, like what I was saying earlier is like it all needs to be approved by like the same group of people. So like they have the same main producer working there that worked on the old games. It's like with what was it? Rare Studios. A lot of the developers are still working at Rare that worked on like Banjo-Kazooie, but then a lot of the developers like made their own studio, which is how we got Playtonic Games with Yooka-Laylee. So it's like there are like the teams basically like instead of the one full team, it's like 2 or 3 teams that have newer people or whatever. But anyways, what I was going to say earlier when I raised my finger because it popped in my head, Reggie Fils-Aimé at E3 a few years ago was being interviewed, and they asked him about Metroid Prime 4. And this was before the Switch was even really announced or anyone knew what it was. And he said that with Metroid Prime Federation Force, like his exact quote was, "We know that Federation Force isn't the Metroid game that fans want." Which implied that they did know what Metroid game fans wanted and were also working on it, but they weren't ready to announce it yet, which ended up being true because whether or not it was in development at that time, they ended up announcing it like a year or two later. I don't really know when Federation Force released compared to the Prime 4 announcement. But yeah, even back then when the game first, Federation Force was announced, Reggie hinted at Prime 4 being a thing. And they were probably like looking at, in the same way that Alan Numa looks at Triforce Heroes, or looked at Triforce Heroes like an experimental handheld multiplayer Zelda game, as whether or not to pursue a multiplayer home console game. Maybe Federation Force was the same thing, to where it was a handheld experimental multiplayer Metroid game to see if it did well enough, and if it did, maybe they would have used elements of that for a multiplayer Metroid Prime 4, which Prime 2 Echoes had multiplayer, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yes, very limited.
Yeah, it wasn't co-op, it was like versus,
shoot
wasn't
'em
it?
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Hunters did have like a full online thing.
Wait, what? Hunters?
Yeah, on the
Super
DS.
Hunters.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny though, with Federation Force, it was released in 2016. Samus Returns released barely just slightly over a year later.
Yeah, just give us
So it was
Samus
like August
Returns HD.
2016. Samus Returns came out September of 2017. So that very well may have been what Reggie was referring to as
Daniel,
well.
call Miyamoto,
I'll call him.
your best friend, and just
Fine.
tell him we want.
No. Every time I call him, he just
Tell
sends
him-
those Nintendo Wii commercial guys
Tell
to my
him
house.
we want Federation Force HD.
He just sends those commercial guys to
Tell
my
him
house.
we do
They
not
knock on the
want
door
Samus.
and they just go, "We would like to play."
if they
And
if they have the master file
it's not
for
2005 anymore.
if they have the master file for Metroid Prime Trilogy HD or Samus Returns HD, just tell him, just delete
it.
that, delete it. Give us Federation Force HD. That's what we want. Not Trilogy HD. The only true Metroid Prime game is Federation Force.
I know his plane still gets me angry.
Oh no! But
No.
but then yeah, they announced. Oh goodness, Jesse! They announced Metroid Prime 4 in 2017
I broke
as
your
well.
brain.
So it's unfortunate because a lot of the backlash about Federation Force was people being like, "But we want a real Metroid game." But then I
Yeah.
guess at that time it was very likely that they were working on both Metroid Prime 4 and Samus Returns. And if they had just told people that, no one would have been as upset. They would have just been like, okay,
This
well,
has
we
a
got this
cool
until
Metroid
the new
game.
one. You mean Metroid?
Yeah. This
I
has a
hate
cool
it.
Metroid game.
It's just a true story. I really like Metroid games, but Metroid for the NES, I hate it. I really do. There's so
Yeah.
many things wrong with it.
All right.
But
Let's try to hurry up and get through this because we have the
Yes.
other things that we need to talk about. But yeah, for
Necessary
everyone,
evil.
I was joking about canceling the Prime trilogy.
Abigail, and it's just Federation Force HD is what the fans want.
Oh my god.
That's what Reggie really meant.
Yes,
I
thank
mean-
you,
Federation
Abby.
Force is not what the fans want because it's in standard definition.
Oh my god.
No,
Like,
it's not even in
it's
standard
not a bad
definition.
game. I
It's
just
in
think it came out
240p.
at, like the wrong time, to be honest. It's a good game. It just came out at a bad time.
I agree. It was a timing issue, and I think if they had fans, they're like, hey, we're releasing Metroid Prime Federation Force, but don't worry, because next year Samus Returns is coming out, and then we're also working on Metroid Prime 4. No one would have been angry. They'd been like, cool, Federation Force is coming out. Next Level Games is working on it, while Nintendo and this other mystery studio work on Samus Returns. Great. Everyone's having a great time. I'm all happy about it.
Yeah. We
But
went
instead, everyone was just angry.
We went like an entire decade, or the better half of a decade, with no Metroid announcements. And then within 2 years, they're like, you get a brand new multiplayer handheld Metroid game, you get a remake of a classic Metroid game, and you get the very first original HD Metroid announcement. That would have been enough to like make anyone that's a Metroid fan happy. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah. But finishing up, Cliff,
Yes.
since you joined in kind of late, what are your thoughts on this? And then we can go to Gibbs,
Tell
and
us,
then
Cliff.
we can
Yeah,
try to
sure.
get through the other news stories.
Yeah, I
really
mean, like at
quickly.
first when it was first announced, it was a shock 'cause I didn't really see it coming. Because I know a lot of people were predicting that this game would probably come out either late 2019 or early 2020, and it was something that I was thinking about. Like, it seems like the right time. It's been like 2 years. It might be possible that the game might come out this year. So it was a shock, but I understand that, things happen in development and sometimes you might need to refresh the drawing boards. So, I mean, as long as it's going to, give us a better product, then that's, I'm happy for it.
Completely agree.
Yes, 100%.
All right, Gibbs, do you have final thoughts?
I'm happy that Nintendo actually stepped up to the plate and said, "Hey, we messed up. We're starting from the beginning again." However, I don't think they're scrapping everything completely. It's more of a whole, more of an oversight to say we're scrapping everything, starting from scratch. I think that's a whole overstatement. Because I think character models would have already been done, maybe some world models or anything, if anything, and Nintendo might have been like, hey, here is a basic physics engine for Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey, retweak it for it.
So Nintendo did say, I don't mean to interrupt, but I remember they said that, I hate when people do that. I just did it.
What?
It's, yeah, whenever people on like you'll watch random YouTube videos of people that don't really know how to talk on the video. So before every sentence they'll do that to where they're just like, I guess it's like a nervous thing that people do.
Just give me a little
But-
smooch.
Yeah, but it's people in an interview with me. I don't know if it was Awada or Aonuma or Miyamoto or who it was, but it was someone who was like in charge at Nintendo. I want to say it was like maybe Fujibayashi, the director for Breath of the Wild. But anyways, someone said to recuperate some of the lost cost for delaying Breath of the Wild over and over and over again, which I don't think they have to worry about now because I don't think they expected it to sell as well as it did.
Yeah, they did good.
But so they probably made back all of their money, but they said they were going to use a lot of the the new developing tools that they came up with and the new version of the engine, which the Breath of the Wild engine, it began as the Zelda Wii U tech demo, and then it kind of evolved a little bit into the Wind Waker HD, and then it evolved again into what we now have as Breath of the Wild. And even the main physics engine that they used wasn't even, Nintendo had almost nothing to do with that. That was the Havoc engine, which is like the same physics engine that's featured in tons and tons and tons of other games. But the main actual engine for like the lighting and everything, the movement and stuff, Nintendo did come up with that themselves, and they did say that they were going to be using a lot of the technology and a lot of the engines they created to use for other games, which made me think maybe they would use it for like Mario Odyssey or maybe Metroid or whatever else.
Right.
So
They did for Mario Odyssey, though. It is the same engine. So yeah, that's
yeah, I could see that.
credibility to your words having.
Well, it wasn't my words, it was the other people's words.
The words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
anyways,
to finish up here, I do think there might be Metroid Prime coming, Metroid Prime trilogy coming. I mean, why not? It's going to sell well, especially because a lot of people already got rid of their Wii U's or Wii's.
Wow.
Not everyone. Not everyone.
That's the only
Daniel.
way you can play Wind Waker HD.
So, I think, yeah, it's somewhere down the line. I don't think it's completely out of the picture, especially because it's going to be a fourth installment on a bigger story. So, I think maybe just to refresh and hold other people up, other players, they'll release at least Metro Prime 1 and then 2. Even if it's a staggered release, I think that it would be also a good investment if it's not just one overall. Just one copy. So yeah.
And for those wondering, it's right now is the best time to get a Wii U because everyone's selling theirs to go get a Switch. And so if you wait too long, it's going to become a novelty item and collectors are going to be buying it, so it's going to go up in price. So
get the
best
Wind
time
Waker
to get a
edition.
secondhand Wii U, everybody.
Wait, there was a 3DS for your house? What?
That's kind of what the Wii U is. I mean, yeah.
Without the 3D.
Without the 3D, yeah.
Well, there's the news story that we are omitting from the podcast, but it was basically Nintendo patented something for a new console that would make your TV display the same type of glasses-free 3D technology.
Neat.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That's pretty cool. It's basically like a tech demo on I don't know if it's on YouTube right now, but there's like a demo of somebody using a Wii remote to do the same thing that was in their patent. Like have like 3D without glasses and stuff like that. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I've seen that.
I've seen you.
It was really oh, okay. Did you know that if your Wii sensor bar breaks, you can light 2 candles and put them
I did.
in front of your TV, and it will.
And hopefully not burn your TV.
Don't burn your TV though. But it will work. So I think it's a good time to move to our next topic. Oh boy, Jesse, take us away.
Do you want to do the news for the game? The Zelda
game.
Yeah, just talk about it.
You know, the game. Is that the one? Okay.
I don't know which one you guys picked. The Wind Water
I do.
game?
Windscape. Yes, we picked that one. Okay.
So yeah, just read it like a normal news thing.
Here's an article, everybody, from NintendoLife.com.
Hey everyone, it's me again, Elia Rose. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video. And you know what? If you're a fan of videos like this, you should totally subscribe and give this video a like and comment below to let us know what type of videos you would like to see us create in the future. And if you would really like to support all of us here at the GameOverJesse channel, please consider purchasing a GameOverJesse t-shirt or becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/GameOverJesse, where you can receive many rewards, such as getting shoutouts, having any topic or theory that you select discussed on the podcast or made into its own video, having your question answered, joining on as a guest on the podcast, and playing with us during our Twitch live streams at twitch.tv/GameOverJesse, and much, much more.